It is a new era of New York Jets football underway. New general manager, new head coach, new quarterback. It's going to be a deep dive into the 2025 New York Jets. If you've been living under a rock the past couple of months of Jets football, uh, everything that you need to know. The new coaching staff. We're going to get into what is likely to be some scheme changes based on the information that we have on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Recapping the entire offseason, giving grades to every single position group on the team so far, just other random thoughts on the team, and stamping it with a record prediction for the New York Jets. Let's do it. So out goes Robert Saleh, Nate Hackett, Todd Downing, Keith Carter, the whole crew. In comes head coach Aaron Glenn, former Jet great, defensive coordinator in Detroit. He brings along with him Tanner Engstrand, offensive assistant from the Detroit Lions under Ben Johnson's staff, Steve Wilks, been a defensive coordinator in the league before, and then Chris Banjo, who he overlapped with his time coaching alongside Sean Payton. So with this staff, now right away you're seeing, okay, first time defensive minded head coach, first time OC, and then some more experience on the defensive side of the ball. So you're seeing some similarities in the Jets' previous staff, which is not unreasonable to have concerns about. But at the end of the day, the Jets are betting on the leadership characteristics of Aaron Glenn. That is the bet that they are making here. And they are hoping that the areas that were pitfalls from the previous regime and leadership, discipline, attention to detail. There was a clip the other day that the Jets social media puts out, and it's all propaganda. We get it. They're trying to get the fan base fired up and all that. They have a product to sell. And Aaron Glenn hasn't coached a game yet as a head coach, so all the caveats that we want to put in there. But he was going around all different position groups, and he kept saying, detail your shit out. I think they were bleeping it out. I couldn't tell what expletive there was in there, but I think he was saying detail your bleep out, right? Some word in there that they couldn't release over and over again. Detail. And the crazy thing about that clip, I did a video or a stream that was at the end of last year or maybe during last year, and I saw an old clip of Bill Parcells. I know, of Bill Parcells at some training camp back in the day with the Jets, and he pulled aside one of the punt returners, and he was coaching him of like, here, do you see how the nose of the ball is going like here? That means it's going to come this way, so you have to come over here and catch it. He was coaching the finer points of kick returning to one of his potential kick returners. And my comment at the time was like, could you imagine Robert Saleh or Jeff Ulbrich doing that? There's no way. And then lo and behold, in this video, it wasn't as long of a clip, but there was a portion where Aaron Glenn pulls over Jamal Pritchard and in the same way is coaching him up on something specific he wants him to do with returning the ball. So I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to be a good head coach, but I'm pretty confident in at least saying if he's going to fail, it's not going to be for the same reasons that Robert Saleh failed, at least from a leadership perspective, being buttoned up, being detail-oriented. Some encouraging signs so far. And Tanner Engstrand, this is just a button teams press. What do? How do you get a good offensive coordinator? Well, maybe you just an offensive coordinator who was out of work or a fired head coach comes back to work. You can get lucky that way, but for the most part, you have to pick a good offensive staff and pluck one of their assistants and hope that it works out. And the Detroit Lions had probably the best coached offense in football the past couple of years, at least top three. And they plucked Tanner Engstrand, and here he goes. And Tanner Engstrand, to me, again, seems like a little bit better, more authentic of a communicator because Michael Thor is kind of a robot. We'll see what we got there. I like the addition of Steve Wilks because you want Aaron Glenn to have the ability of being a quote-unquote CEO head coach. Now, when we get into the defensive schematics part of this, we'll see how much of the defense is Glenn and how much of the defense is Wilks. I have a hard time believing Glenn is going to be willing to abandon his press man principles in favor of Steve Wilks' zone-heavy principles. But you have a guy who's been there, done that. So now that's one area of the ball where you can you don't have to be as micromanaging, right? You don't want a bunch of newbies all across your staff. And then special teams coaching, man, let's see what we got in Chris Banjo. I do like some of the personnel changes they made in special teams, and I think special teams could be one of the biggest needle moving parts of this team this upcoming season because of how bad it was last year, and it's such a volatile position grouping that it's probably going to ascend to the mean. I think like at a minimum, 2 games were lost last year. Probably 2 more games or 1 if they have league average kicking, right? So new quarterback in town is Justin Fields, and the Jets made a quarterback change. They move on from Aaron Rodgers, and they bring in Justin Fields. And I think that when they move on from Rodgers, we've beaten that to death. So I don't think you're crazy if you wanted the Jets to keep him, because at the end of the day, there weren't a lot of great options. Honestly, probably the 2 most coveted quarterbacks in that hit free agency were probably, if you look at probably Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, right? Because there was a trade in there with Geno, but the top, those are the top 3 free agent quarterbacks. So slim picking. So if you wanted to keep Aaron, that's cool. Now they bring in Justin Fields. And I think that with Justin, the reason why you get him is pretty simple to me. He is the only quarterback that had a non-0% chance to becoming a medium to long-term solution. Kirk Cousins wasn't giving you that. Derek Carr already retired. He wasn't giving you that. Aaron Rodgers, even if you wanted to have him go out there and muck about and throw his 517 pass and go 7 and whatever, and score less points than Andy Dalton again, that's all good and well. But then you would still need a new quarterback in 2026, man. So he was the only guy that gave you a percent chance. What is that percent chance? I don't know. 20%. How do you quantify it? But it's greater than 0. With most of these other guys, it was a 0% chance. You compound that with the fact that the NFL pretty much agreed there was 1 quarterback worth taking in the top 10. That was Cam Moore. The Jets were not going to be able to get him. So the Jets are kind of in a limbo year at the quarterback position. Did they want to limbo it back with Rodgers? Did they want to limbo it with Fields? It's just a different flavor of limboing, at least in my opinion. I don't think either one of them have the ceiling to at this point in their respective careers to have the Jets like at an 11-win team. Could one be worth a win or 2 more than the other? Sure. Is it worth dying and crying, griping about? In my opinion, not really. Fields is here. He's a player that is younger, cheaper, they think could be more durable and have some upside. That is the bet that they are making, and it's a hedged bet because it's $30 million guaranteed over 2 years, which in quarterback money in 2025 is really not that much at all. Now, in the other offseason moves, they've obviously bring in Justin Fields. That's their biggest outside addition. But they re-signed some of their own damn good players. Garrett Wilson, 4 years, $130 million. Sauce Gardner just behind him, 4 years, $120. Jamie and Sherwood, 3 years, $45 million. And with Sherwood, I like the bet with Sherwood because it's a little bit of a smaller sample size, but man, he was voted the team MVP by his teammates. That doesn't necessarily mean nothing to me. It doesn't mean nothing to me. He is the kind of player that you sign and you send the message to the rest of your team. Okay, 5th round pick, works his ass off, changes positions, changes his body, does his job as a backup, as a special teamer, as a sub package player, is always ready, gets his opportunity, crushes it, gets a payday. Is beloved by his teammates, brings his lunch to work every day, works his behind off. High character dude, you get rewarded. Yeah, that's the message these send. Garrett Wilson, he's a wide receiver 1. You need a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. Is he the 9th best receiver? Is he the 14th best receiver? Could he potentially eventually break out to a top 5 receiver? Look, he's a wide receiver 1. And he got wide receiver 1 money. And with Sauce, this was one where I saw a lot of comments of, well, you can't pay him $30 million a year if he's not going to tackle and not get interceptions. I actually agree with that. To me, I don't think you're just being a negative Jet fan if you're going, man, $30 million for a corner who has demonstrated some liabilities in his game. I don't think you're crazy, but here's the thing. It's not really 4 years, $30 million a year. It's not. If you look at the guaranteed money, the Jets gave Sauce Gardner a 2-year, $52 million extension with the option to have that payday balloon even more to over 30 million in a couple of years if they wanted to. And if they don't want it to, there's nothing past that 2-year, $52 million. So it's really 2 more years, 26-ish million a year. It's not $30 million a year for the next 4 years. It's always the guarantee money that matters. So that contract was a little bit of a prove it contract. I know it sounds crazy, 4 years, 120 million, but the fine print on Sauce's contract is still a little bit of a prove it contract. So to me with Sauce, he has to improve in those areas, missed tackles or picks, at least one of them. If he still can't tackle, but he gets four or five interceptions and is still the best cover corner in football, then it is what it is. If he still just whatever reason isn't only getting one interception a year, but he cleans up the tackling and nobody gets open on him and he still has the best coverage analytics, then who cares? He's got to get better at least one of them. And I'm hoping that the Jets will move him with number one receivers in critical situations so that the other team can't dictate his impact on the game. Now you got some other, and then beyond that, man, some more re-signings, a lot of cheap deals on here. They bring back Tony Adams and Isaiah Oliver, who are some veteran defensive backs. Kene Nwangwu, really good kick returner. We'll talk about him more later in this video. Jamin Davis, he'll be a name we mentioned as well. Could have a specific role for him. They bring him back 1 year, 1.6 million. And Xavier Newman seems to be sticking around, probably going to make the team as a primary backup into your offensive lineman. Rounding out the re-signings. Now, some other free agent additions. So Brandon Stephens, he was probably the most controversial of the free agent signings. Thank you for that, UConn Jet. And 3 year, 36 million. If you look at the guaranteed money again, it is really a 2 year, $24 million deal. And we all know the book on Stephens, right? The book on Stephens. Ravens fans told us this right away. Hey, man, in coverage, he's often in a pretty good position, but when the ball gets there, he can't figure out how to play the ball, so he panics. He commits a penalty. He jumps. He doesn't look back. And for that reason, he gave up the most yards of any corner in the NFL last year. A big part of that was Jamar Chase, a couple of 200-yarders on their head in Baltimore. And he gave up a lot of them. But if you look at some nerd stats, it's like he is one of the lowest separation allowed of any corner. So he's right there, can't make a play on the ball. Remember that was the thing with Kyle Wilson, if I'm remembering correctly. Now, I think it is, and I get it, guys. Look, Aaron Glenn, former all-pro corner, defensive coordinator, former scout, and I'm just a fan with a micro. I get it. It's just my 2 cents, man. You know, that's all it is. It's not that deep. But I think it is justifiable to criticize this signing because they're really betting on being able to fix that, because if you can't fix that and it was 1 year, it's like, okay, whatever, he walks, you plug in AZ Thomas or Quantez Stiggers or whoever else, and it is what it is, you missed. But if they can't figure that out, then you are still paying him decent starting corner money for at least 2 years. So if you look at Andre Cisco, which is a contract that I love, I'm confused as to why the Jets couldn't get Brandon Stephens for a deal like Andre Cisco's. I would almost think their deal should have been inverted, because Cisco has proven, and it was a little bit of a down year last year with Cisco, that Jaguars defense just fell apart completely. Horrific defense last year. But he's shown the ability to be an adequate starting defensive back in this league who has a nose for taking away the football. Now, he's a little one-dimensional. He's a gambler, so he'll give up some plays. His angles aren't the best in the run game, but he is a true free safety or rangy ball hawk type of safety. The Jets haven't had that skill set in a while. You need one with the amount of cover one that the Jets are going to run. So I love that deal. And he's super young. I think he's like 25. So they're saying, hey, man, prove that last year was an anomaly, bounce back, and then, you know, maybe he gets a 3-year extension with the Jets to be a starting safety long-term. With Stephens, I just don't understand that there was that amount of competition of another team who was willing to do that. There we go. Those are the 2 veteran defensive backs that they bring in. I really like the bet they made on Cisco. With Stephens, they're really that'll be a nice early indicator. Like if he comes out the first month of the season and it's like, dude, he's clamping people, they fixed him, that will be a very nice early indication of what we're working with for our coaching staff, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Now they bring in a couple of veterans, Josh Myers, Josh Reynolds. Now, did the Jets do a ton to drastically improve their talent this offseason? No, but I think if you go signing by signing, besides the Stephens signing, it's hard to find ones that you really don't like, because how can there be a bad $2 million deal? You know what I mean? I mean, Josh Myers is a bad starting center, but a good backup center. $2 million for a good backup center is fine. Josh Reynolds, 2.75 million. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 2. Is he miscast as that? Yeah. But at worst, he's a wide receiver 3 or 4, and getting that for 2.75 million in today's wide receiver market is awesome. And he has familiarity with the coaching staff that like his blocking. Nick Folk as well, I think, is a great signing. I haven't seen the details on that financially yet, but I know it's a 1-year deal. He's super old, and hey, we saw Greg Z have a great season, and then 2 great seasons, and then follow it up with a complete stinker. So you never know with kicker. But so far in camp, Folk has been miles ahead of the thicker kicker. Led the league in field goal percentage the last 2 years. So yeah, this is a big addition. I know it's not a sexy addition, but dude, if you're rolling out a UFL kicker who you're not confident in versus a guy who's been there, made big kicks, clutch kicks in this same stadium, who led the league in field goal percentage the last 2 years, yeah, that's changing your win total more than any other signing on this list if you're getting that version of Nick Folk. So I'm glad that the Jets, saw what they had in kicker and went and made a change. Some other vet minimum additions. They also got backup Chuks Okafor. We'll be interested to see if he's just a swing tackle or a backup right tackle. At right tackle, he's been a serviceable player in this league. At left tackle, he was absolutely atrocious last year. Rashad Weaver, edge, Andrew Beck, tight end / fullback / special teamer. He wears a lot of hats. I think he can make the team. Stone Smart, niche receiving tight end who gives you nothing as a blocker. Chris Boyd, who is another Irv Charles type of core special teamer, had an injury today. Tyler Johnson, who they got for like $750,000, which I would love. I would love $750,000. Oh man, yeah. Tyler Johnson gets twice the value of my house for his measly vet minimum 1-year contract with the Jets. But it looks like he's the wide receiver 3 early in camp. Derek Noddy, run stuffing, defensive tackle, and then the 3 veteran defensive tackles, right? Noddy, Cowart, Tufele coming in to compete. Probably 2 of them make the team. Then let's go to the NFL draft. Jets pick number 7. They go with Armand Membu, and then they back it up with Mason Taylor. And I think it's important to talk about those picks in conjunction with each other because that was the debate. It's been the debate the last 2 years, right? Weapon or O-line. And the Jets have gone O-line first, weapon second, each of the past 2 years. Last year, I was definitely in the Brock Bowers camp. This year, I preferred Armand Membu. That was my number 1 preference of the realistic options because I just thought the what you could get at tight end in round 2 was going to be better if you went tackle first than if you did the inverse. And it seems like that might be the case. We have no idea. There could be some tackle who was taken in the 3rd round who goes on to be a Hall of Famer, but early indications are that was a pretty nice way the Jets played it. To get Membu, who comes in, he's incredibly young, incredibly athletic, had a phenomenal pass protection profile. There's no concerns in terms of foot speed. Our balance has the requisite length. It's not a massive projection. The run game is definitely a bit more. I think that he definitely is much more polished as a pass protector than a run blocker, even though he's built more like a run blocker. So now you pair him with Membu, and I think you're going to have a pretty nice, clean, smooth, athletic bookend tackles where you could be talking about not having to take a tackle in like the 1st or 2nd or 3rd round on this team for seriously 8-10 years. We could do 8-10 years of mock drafts and given health and that they all work out and all that, but we could just scratch offensive tackle off the list for early in our mock drafts for a decade. I mean, there's not a lot of goals. There's not a lot more you can achieve with a draft pick that's better than that. That's pretty damn good if he works out. He's got the talent. Let's see what happens. Mason Taylor, dude, isn't it nice? Isn't it really refreshing at camp to see Mason Taylor just be like the guy early on? He catches a touchdown every day. He's clearly running with the ones. He's going to be the tight end 1 by a mile. It's not he's buried on the depth chart. He's learning. Jeremy Ruckert is over him for whatever reason, or Andrew Beck because he knows a secret handshake with the coach. They drafted a kid super young as well. This is a really young draft class, especially these first 3 picks, all 21 or younger on draft night. It's got the bloodlines with Hall of Fame dad and great hands. People call him a jack of all trades. It wasn't elite at one thing. He was elite at catching the football, and that's pretty important for a tight end. The blocking is probably not going to be anything to write home about as a rookie. But I think he is going to be one of the featured players in this passing offense. I mean, he might be second in receptions on the team behind Garrett Wilson, and I wouldn't be shocked. And that's pretty awesome. Is he going to be as good as Tyler Warren? No. But again, the combination of M'Boue and Taylor, I think, was a great haul for the Jets. I love their first 2 picks. AZ Thomas. I kind of have a hot take on AZ Thomas because typically when we talk about rounds 3 and 4, everyone says, and these are people smarter than me. These are Connor Rogers, who had the board, and Joe Blua, who watched all the film. Okay, smarter than me, but you got to pay to hang out with those guys. This is free. this is free analysis. But I actually like with AZ Thomas, same thing with Stevens, Aaron Glenn, cornerback. He knows it's a position where you're going to have to trust him as much as any other. But I'm actually looking at guys like Quantez Stiggers, JBC, even hoping maybe they would have brought back Eccles on a cheap deal. And in my mind, I'm like, you have your veteran corner in Stevens, coach up Stiggers or JBC, and in this system, and have them ready to be the starter neck across from Sauce in a year or 2. And take that 3rd round pick and have it be a defensive tackle who's starting next to Quinnen Williams. Right? Or a guard who we're going to need a starting guard next year, probably because you're not going to pay 2 guards $17+ million. Or a starting line or a linebacker who's probably going to start, who could start next year, because are you going to pay 2 linebackers $15 million? You know what I mean? So I just, and it's nothing against AZ Thomas, who is his skill set is built for what Aaron Glenn does. He's a long, physical press man corner who was super young, and according to consensus, should have been taken higher than he was, fell because of the 40 time. So it's nothing against him, but just in terms of resource allocation, and I don't have a ton of evidence for it. I just think between Quantez Stiggers and JBC, and under this coaching staff that we have with Aaron Glenn being a former All-Pro corner, like I think one of them could have ended up being serviceable across from Sauce, and you take this 3rd round pick and you allocate it towards something else that you need. Double-dip pass catcher or a pipeline starter that in a position you're a year away from needing a starter. That's kind of a hot take because I know AZ Thomas was a beloved pick. Now, again, if AZ Thomas is starting in 2 years, who cares? But whatever. That's my take. And then another hot take is I actually like the Arian Smith pick better than most. I'm a little lower on the AZ Thomas pick, not because of the player. I just putting the pieces all together on the roster. I think a different position might have been the way to go. But with Arian Smith, like he's bringing an element to this offense that it needs. It needs speed to stretch the field horizontally and vertically. And I think that when you have elite speed like that can space your offense, I think it does things to the defense that opens up things for you in ways that can't be accounted for on the stat sheet, right? Like Deshaun Jackson was often called like the most effective decoy, or when Tyreek Hill is, I know he's not those guys. I'm just making a point. Like when Tyreek Hill does that little orbit motion and gets that running start from the line, it stresses the defense so much, that element of speed. Or when you have a Jameson Williams running that jet motion, it's always a threat of that, right? Now, again, Arian Smith is probably not going to be any of those guys, but if he could be a number 3 wide receiver a year from now, like that's let's talk about what the benchmark is for these being successful picks. Year 1, who knows? But by year 2, you got to show something as a 4th round pick who was a little bit older relative to this draft class. If in his second season, Arian Smith is the Jets wide receiver 3, and not just because their wide receiver room sucks, but he looks like a legitimate NFL wide receiver 3, that on other teams he'd be their wide receiver 3. Well, then all the panic was much ado about nothing. And if he's not, and if he's a wide receiver 4, well, that's a little disappointing. Okay, and then did they turn him into some sort of returner? Okay, go look at the Jets' last drafts in the 3rd and 4th round. Tell me outcomes that are better than that. We got to start getting on base here. If Arian Smith can do that, that's getting on base. He seems to be making some splash plays in camp, which means something because Corley was not doing that last year. Corley was on a milk carton last camp. We couldn't even find him. He's running like the 4 stringers. Arian Smith is getting work with the second team at least. It seems like every other pass, this one from Taylor, this one from Fields. So Arian Smith seems to be like right on the fringe, like wide receiver 4-ish. He's a strong finish, a strong next month, and maybe Arian Smith is, has a sub package for him where he's the fourth receiver and he plays 28% of the snaps as a rookie. We'll take that in the skill positions in the fourth round. Malachi Moore, yeah, I mean, no hot take here, man. It's a position of need. He was versatile. He was five-year starter under Nick Saban. Yeah, I mean, he's hurt now too, so maybe he's not a day one starter, but again, I think year two, he's probably starting for you. And he also brings that quarterbacking of a defense type of character that I think this defense could use a little bit. It needs a little bit more football IQ on the back end. And I think he would pair nicely with Cisco because Adams and Cisco together are going to be a suspect run defending safety tandem. So I'm hoping if it's close, just let Moore play over Adams. But this injury might set that behind a little bit. Kiko Mauagoa is just a see the ball, hit the ball linebacker. He uses the downhill attacking run defending linebacker. I mean, he's a little small and his athletics are kind of measurables are kind of plus, but in coverage, he was very bad. So right now I see him as that third linebacker who is just out there when you're expecting the run in those kind of packages, when you want to go a little heavier. I think that's him. Maybe they can untap some stuff as a blitzer where he's kind of that rush hybrid. I think that might be Jamin Davis, but right now that's Kiko Mauagoa. Could be the third linebacker. Again, if he's the third linebacker and he's playing 19% of the snaps and 40% of the special teams reps as a fifth round pick, that's a W. Tyler Barron, I have no hot take on. I mean, because when Miami played bad teams, really bad competition, he was dominant in both phases. When they played good competition, he was bad in both phases. He's kind of a weird player. His measurables are big, but he doesn't play with a lot of power. Kind of a quick first step, some long arms. He did some inside outside in college, but I don't know if he'll be big enough to do that at the NFL. So he's a player where of all these guys, I think that's where he might be inactive week one. The rest of these guys are going to suit up week one. And then UDFAs, obviously there was a bunch of them, but the three that I think are most noteworthy in terms of how quickly you're going to see them: Peyton Page, run stuffing one tech out of Clemson; Jamal Pritchett, who could win the punt return job / final wide receiver job against Xavier Gibson; and Leander Vegan, who is the international exemption that they're probably going to use to keep him on the practice squad. So we know Vegan's going to be on the practice squad because it's a free spot if it's an international player, and they cut the guy they gave it to last year. So Vegan's going to be there on the practice squad unless he gets hurt. So offensive principles. Now, what we're looking at here is Ben Johnson. So I'm assuming Tanner Engstrom is going to look at Ben Johnson's success and say, let's just do that. Okay, so that's what we're going to get into here and how that melds with Fields. So I think number one, you're going to see more, let's just say pre-snap motion, more pre-snap motion and play action, which are the two things that are so highly correlated with scoring freaking points. The teams that choose not to do this are dinosaurs. It's unbelievable. Like you look at like McVay and Shanahan and Reed, and it's McDaniel. Good offenses do this a lot. Bad offenses do not. I don't understand. And the Jets, very low in both of these last year. So you're going to see a massive hike in pre-snap motion and play action. Obviously, leverage quarterback running. Now, that's not something that Ben Johnson did because you're coming from Jared Goff, who is obviously a better quarterback than Justin Fields, but you could not have a more different skill set. Jared Goff might be the least athletic starting quarterback in the NFL. Justin Fields is probably one of the top 5 most athletic quarterbacks in the NFL. So obviously, you don't sign Justin Fields if you don't have a plan to leverage his rushing ability. We just don't have an exact blueprint of how somebody coming from Ben Johnson's staff would necessarily do that. more 12 personnel. So I think you'll see more 2 tight ends on the field. Lions did that, top 10 in the NFL. More trick plays and shot plays, designed to steal chunks of yards. Remember, Mike LaFleur even used to do that. He didn't do enough else to make up for it. But obviously, Lions, one of the more creative coaching staffs in the NFL. More trick plays, more shot plays. From a run scheme, you're getting a lot of power and counter. Not as much wide zone as I thought coming from the Detroit Lions last year. But they're also a red zone bag, and this is where a really good OC should shine. Those situational calls, once you get into the red zone, are critical downs and distance, like where you just have that 6 to 8 different play calls, 2-point conversion, where you're really confident in your isolating a certain skill set or taking advantage of a certain matchup. It's something you've drilled that's putting your team in advantage. It's something we do well, and the opponent doesn't stop well. The Jets seem like they did the opposite of that last year, where every single third and short was a shotgun, like halfback belly to Braylon Allen. Which fine, Braylon Allen is a short yardage back, and he actually made the most of it. But it's the most predictable call. Or now if it's 3rd and 2, well, first of all, you get the option of Fields to keep it or hand it off, so you get some more horizontal spacing. Or do they do like a little pitch jet motion to Arian Smith? Like, it won't just be halfback belly out of the shotgun. And speaking of shotgun, they're going to be under center a lot more under center. This offense could not. It's going to look night and day different for all those reasons. So, and if previewing the Jets offense, could they be the Walmart Detroit Lions? And if you think that's offensive to the Jets, hey man, I would take being the Walmart Detroit Lions. They scored 33 points a game last year. So if we could get 70% of that, it would be good to go. The Jets scored 19 points per game last year. So we look at how the Detroit Lions built their offense. It was a really good offensive line that they spent. Hold on, let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4 first-round picks on. But you can get an offensive lineman as a UDFA. Everyone does it. Okay, name the teams. Name the teams. It's made up. Why do we just conjure up talking points out of thin air? It was so far. Yes, you can, but like, name me the examples. Good tackles go in the first and second round. What are we talking about? Yeah, that one guy. Okay, that's it. Just that one guy. Insane. Yeah, good teams draft tackles, and then they pay them. That's it. Anyway, but offensive line, 4 first-round picks on it. That was the first unit that really became good. When Detroit turned their team around, they got Jared Goff, who's a good quarterback. But after that, the first unit that they wanted to get squared away was the offensive line. And they did that. And the Jets, their most premium asset that they've had so far, number 7th overall pick, they use it to complete their offensive line. Now, Garrett Wilson, I think, could be used in the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, where Detroit, they just line up Amon-Ra St. Brown, they move him around, they get him in matchups, and he kind of dictates. Everything else is just off of that. He is the queen on the chessboard, going everywhere. And I think Garrett Wilson will be that. And I think Garrett Wilson could see a lot of time in the slot too. Mason Taylor, 2nd round tight end. Not the biggest guy in the world, plus athlete. Could that be Sam Laporta? Right? Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. Again, I know not all the guys that we have are not as good as or as accomplished as Detroit, but stylistically, I'm seeing a pattern. They have Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, a thunder and lightning running back duo. Arian Smith, deep threat. Jameson Williams. I know he's not as good as Jameson Williams. I know. But I'm saying he adds a certain skill set of speed that Aaron Glenn did mention. He brought up Jameson Williams by name when talking about Arian Smith. And then Josh Reynolds he was Josh Reynolds over there a couple of years ago. Right? So could they be the Walmart Detroit Lions? And I would take that. I would take being the off-brand Detroit Lions offense, because that would be the best offense we've seen in a long time. So now let's go through the offensive position groups, and I'm just going to grade them with a phrase because last year my grades were so egregiously high for this team, so overrated, and I just I can't do it again. It was so bad. It aged to be so bad. Talk about how good Hassan Reddick was going to be and all that, but so I just with the phrase. Each position group gets a phrase. The quarterback room it is run, baby run, because the Jets, if they are going to do some things this year, they need to get the most out of Justin Fields' legs. He's got to have 700 plus rushing yards. And I'd say 7-8 rushing touchdowns. He has to be their second most productive rusher by a significant margin. That's really where it starts with this room. And I like Tyrod. Tyrod can play. Tyrod's a good backup. Tyrod is probably the best quarterback on at camp. He probably looks the best because he's the best passing quarterback we have on the team. And from like the mental part of the game, the diagnosing, the being comfortable in the huddle, the experience, and just the passing ability, the accuracy, Tyrod is probably looks like QB1 in shorts. Now, obviously, Justin Fields athletically can just do things that are so different that when the pads come on, he'll add the element to it. But you got to get the most out of those legs. Brady Cook and AJ Martinez, they are there. They are there, and we wish them well. Offensive line, raise the floor. I don't know how much it raises the roof. I don't know what the Jets' roof is this year. But I think one of the things that raises their floor and will prevent them from being like a 2 to 3 win team is this offensive line that goes Olu, Simpson, Joe Tippmann, ABT, Armand Membou. Do the Jets have a bad offensive lineman? No. So unless they're going to be coached historically atrociously last year or have a bunch of injuries, then they won't have a bad offensive line. Last year, people told me the Jets had a bad offensive line. And I said, who's the bad offensive lineman? And I said, it's not that simple. It might kind of be. From a pass protection standpoint, the Jets were excellent last year. Now, we'll talk more about the offensive strengths and weaknesses, and will their quarterback allow them to take advantage of that pass protection? That's a different conversation. But I think good pass protecting will be happening with this team. An Olu Fashanu second-year leap to being a top 10 left tackle, I think is something that I would almost predict it. I would say it's more likely than not. Armand Membou, I think he's probably going to leave some meat on the bone in the run game as a rookie. But I think he'll come out and just physically, athletically, he'll be ready to go as a pass protector. First assignment, TJ Watt. How about that, Armand Membou? The depth, you have two veterans with some good experience as starters in this league, and Okafor at right tackle and Myers at center. Beyond that, it is some dudes that you straight up do not want to see on the field. Let's call it what it is. Max Mitchell, Xavier Newman, Carter Warren. I'm guessing that Okafor is the swing tackle, and he'd be the primary backup. Now, when Simpson was out at practice the other day, the Jets put Myers in, and they put Tippmann to guard. So, that's probably what they're going to do, man. Like, they're going to say, Okafor and Myers are the first guys off the bench, and we'll shuffle the deck how to get those 5 guys on there. It's probably just what they're going to do, man. I don't know. At least with Tippmann. Probably not ABT to tackle, but Tippmann tinkering about on the interior, I think, is something you're going to see probably. But yeah, man, that the run blocking, wasn't as good last year. Definitely, but the pass protection was adequate. They had the third lowest pressure rate allowed as a unit last year. Wide receiver room. I'm going to name the wide receiver room Garrett, Wilson, and friends. It's Garrett and some dudes. Until proven otherwise, let's call it what it is. This team does not really have an adequate wide receiver too. It's like, yeah, well, if this guy, but this guy could. Only so much Coke juice we can drink. The Jets do not have a wide receiver 2 on their roster as of August 2nd, 2025. It's okay. The life goes on. We all got to still go to work on Monday. It's fine. But it is what it is. We can't lie about it. But so I do think there is some good blocking out of this unit. And I do think that somebody like Tyler Johnson could be a nice safety valve for Justin Fields. And Arian Smith is the biggest X factor to me. He's the biggest X factor. If he can become a wide receiver 3 on this team and add an element of speed and he's out there a lot, that is a lot different, because if it's Reynolds, Johnson, and Lazard as your 2, 3, and 4, that is a slow ass wide receiver room outside of Garrett. That would probably be the slowest wide receiver room in the NFL. If you're 2, 3, and 4 are Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, and Allen Lazard in any order. So Xavier Gibson, he's injured as well, but he'll make the team if he can win the punt return job. I really like Brandon Smith. I like Brandon Smith a lot. To me, if a team wants to give a 2029 7th round pick for Lazard, he can go and plug in Brandon Smith. Because besides experience, I don't know what Lazard does that Smith can't. And I would take Smith's hands over Lazard just because Lazard has had the highest drop rate in the NFL 3 of the last 4 seasons. I've seen enough of that. I've seen enough. And that's with his buddy Aaron Rodgers, who Lazard has come out and said, I can only be good with Aaron Rodgers. Malachi Corley, it might be Jover. He's playing with like the 4th string quarterback. It's going to take a miracle for him to make the team. Maybe would a team trade for Corley at this point? Probably not. That's kind of a bummer if we lose a 3rd round pick for nothing. But it's Garrett and friends. And a lot of teams don't have a wide receiver even as good as Garrett. A lot of teams, like a wide receiver 1 isn't just, oh, I'm the number 1 wide receiver on my team. Yeah, well, that would have made like Jermaine Kearse a wide receiver 1 in the Josh McCown year. A lot of teams don't have that. Garrett Wilson's a wide receiver 1. He truly is. And then it's just, we're hoping. So here's the Cope take for the wide receiver room, because I can't look at this and tell you there's a wide receiver 2 on here, because there's just not. But if the Jets get a bounce back year from Breece Hall and Mason Taylor comes out the gate just ready to go, and now Josh Reynolds is your wide receiver 2, but he's your 4th weapon, that's fine. Josh Reynolds is your 4th weapon, is fine. Tyler Johnson's your 5th weapon. Arian Smith is your 6th weapon. Jerry Rucker's your 7th weapon. You're good. If Josh Reynolds is 2nd on the team in catches, I think that, and Tyler Johnson is 3rd, I think that's problematic. So we'll see what we can get from those other rooms if we want to judge the weaponry as a whole. Speaking of running back, I'm going to name the running back room the committee fib. If there is one piece, one thing, and then all this stuff is just 100% my opinion. No sources, whatever. Not even at practice. Obviously, I live miles away. Just my opinion as a fan. I think if there is one thing that I could sell myself on for this Jets team, the Jets offense making some noise this year, that is realistic, it is Breece Hall coming like a bat out of hell and being the dude that we saw not just glimpses of, but 18 games of Breece's career. He's been an awesome running back. And last year, there was however many he played, 15, 16, however many he played, where he was mid. And now Breece Hall, I'm looking at him, number 1, you can't tell me he's not 15 pounds lighter. He is much leaner than he was at the start of last offseason. He was wearing hoodies, like up with a towel over his head, like he was Lindsay Lohan ducking the paparazzi or whatever in the corner on a bike. They're saying he can't practice, but he's not hurt. It was so weird. So weird. Now he's out there. He's got suns out, guns out, looking normal, practicing like a regular human being. So I'm smile once or twice out of the doldrums. It's a contract year. I'm going to guess he likes money. I think that Aaron Glenn saying we're going to have a running back by committee and they're all really good and pretty much saying like these guys are all equal is to light a fire directly under the ass cheeks of Breece Hall, because Aaron Glenn knows, like I know and you know, that when all these guys are at their best, Breece Hall is a different dude than the rest of them. And Breece Hall being just a dynamic, complete weapon, outside run, inside run, turning dump offs into massive gains like we've seen before, lining up even in the slot and running option routes on linebackers, and that being like a 3rd and short play call you go to. That's possible. And that doesn't take a complete projection, like saying Arian Smith or Armand Membu are going to be good. That's the ticket. Justin Fields figuring it out in year 5. We'll get to that. I think that's less likely. It's possible, but it's less likely. This is the ticket. Brees Hall being that dude is a ticket to this offense doing something this year. So I think if he's right, man, and he's motivated and he's ready to go, I don't think it's going to be a running back by committee. I think it's going to be Brees and a big gap in the other dudes, which I love the depth too. It's no shade against Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. Those are awesome running back 2s and 3s. I love Isaiah Davis. I love his game. Isaiah Davis is a beast. Diamond Edwards, UDFA, and then Kenny and Nwangwu, who's a running back, but he would really just make it as a special teamer. Tight end, the rookie is the name of the tight end room because that's all it is, folks. It's another one. See, at the top of these rooms, Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, Mason Taylor, I got no problem with that. Those are some players, but the depth is kind of where it needs to be rebuilt, right? And it's probably going to take more than one offseason. But Mason Taylor, I think he looks like he might be able to come out the gate right away, and I don't know, like 480 yards and 4 touchdowns. Given the low volume of passing this offense is going to have, like something like that, which is like a normal rookie season for a second round weapon, that would be very encouraging. And I think he's up for the task. And that would be on the low end of those numbers. Andrew Beck, I think, is a very nice, versatile player. I think he is the Jets' best non-offensive lineman blocker, and that's a good skill set. Rucker, I think he's definitely going to make the team because you're probably going to keep at least 3, maybe 4 tight ends. There's not a lot of competition. Stone Smart, big slot receiver. His blocking is like bad for a wide receiver. Like Allen Lazard and Josh Reynolds are better blockers than him. So I don't even see a path to hit. I don't think the signing was he's a decent receiver. We're going to teach him how to block. I don't think he can be coached how to block. The tools are just not there. I think maybe they just see him as a big slot receiver who they can use situationally. Neil Johnson has also played a little bit of fullback, so maybe he could be the backup to Andrew Beck or maybe even beat him out and make the team. Zach Kuntz, I see no path to making the roster unless there's massive injuries. But Stone Smart, yeah, as a receiver, there's some traits there with Stone Smart. As a receiver, he's got some chops, but that's all he is. He's a glorified big slot receiver, which, in today's NFL, that's what a lot of tight ends are. So the offensive strengths and weaknesses. Now we've gone over the scheme, the principles. We've gone over all the position groups. The strengths are going to be the rushing attack, and that is assuming a bounce back year from Brees Hall. That's assuming the offensive line will block better because it'll be schematically coached better. Assuming you are going from 32nd in rushing attempts. We didn't run the ball last year. You can't run the ball when you're down. Yeah, you can. What are you talking about? You can't run the ball when you're down 10 points in the first half. Of course you can. The Jets weren't down 40-0 in every game. They just decided that running the ball was not going to be a part of their identity last year. It was a choice they made. Now, I'm going to guess they're going to go from 32nd rushing attempts to probably top 5. Obviously, with Fields getting a lot of work as well. And this is assuming a bounce back year from Brees Hall. That is my one thing I want to keep going back to, man. I think Brees Hall stock is being sold at an all-time low. Justifiably so. He was individually bad last year. I'm not pretending that last year it was all because the sun was in his eyes and there was a loud barking dog and all that. He was individually bad last year. But I can't unsee the good play he's put out there. And I'm betting in his contract year, man, he's going to come out here and have a bounce back year. The pass protection I already talked about should be a strength of this team. All of the Jets offensive linemen that they're bringing back from Fast New all the way across the AVT, they were anywhere from the 3rd best to 12th best in terms of pressure rate allowed at their position. Now that was aided by Aaron Rodgers having the 6th quickest release time. But then if you did it where pressure rate allowed when the ball is held for more than 2.5 seconds, the Jets went from 3rd best to 9th best. So yes, that quick release time did help their pass protection stats, at least from pressures. Their lack of a mobility at quarterback hindered them in terms of sacks because any pressure turned into a sack because there's no escapability. So just to put that out there, that is fair. I wouldn't say they were the third best pass protecting line last year, but once you get to 9th, 10th, when you adjust it for release time, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, look around the NFL, guys. There's not offensive lines suck around the NFL. The Chiefs didn't have a good offensive line. They had a guard playing left tackle. They somehow made the Super Bowl, but yeah. And then when you saw Carter Warren and Max Mitchell go in against the Bills, and it was like 2023 again, and we couldn't even have an offense. Yeah, it wasn't like that last year when the line was healthy, which for the most part they had decent luck last year with health. So yeah, man, pass protection should be pretty good. Explosives, because I think you have guys like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall who are explosive players. Justin Fields is an explosive runner, and he throws a decent deep ball over the middle. He's one of the worst in the NFL over the middle. His deep boundary balls, like 20 plus yards in the air, he's one of the best in the NFL. His last like 10 starts. And then the quick yak game, I think schematically will be a strength of the team. Spacing versus both vertically and horizontally. I think the horizontal spacing of pre-snap motion, play action, and the read option quarterback threat is going to stress the defense horizontally in ways that we could not last year. And then I think there's some skill set and scheme cohesion with the offensive line and the skill groups. With the quarterback, we'll see. I know that's the most important position, but I think that when I went back to the Walmart Lions to sell you on that, you can kind of see the vision of like, here are the specific roles for these skill players that they have, and here's kind of the identity that they're trying to build. It's right. You can kind of see, it's hazy, but you can see a vision there. Offensive limitations. So I gave you my what is it? The white pill. That's the optimistic pill, right? The white pill is Breece Hall, hair on fire. And then that just has a trickle effect on what you're able to do in terms of Fields running the ball and play action and get explosives off of that. That's the ticket to success. My black pill, the biggest reason for doom is, bro, this passing offense ain't going to be good. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. You can't have Justin Fields as your quarterback and Josh Reynolds as your wide receiver too and have a good passing offense. It just ain't going to happen. Now, and of all the units in the NFL, like you in baseball, they have 5 tools. In the NFL, you kind of have 5 things you do. You throw the ball, you run the ball, you stop the run, you stop the pass, you play special teams. And coaching is obviously intermingled in all those things. The passing offense is probably the single of all those 5, the single biggest correlation in like winning games. There's outliers. Well, this team couldn't really do it, but they had a great defense. The Broncos in 2015, of course. But of all those things, if you could only guarantee being good at one of those 5 things, what would you pick? I'd pick run defense. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You would pick passing offense. So, I don't see a path, at least this year, early on, for the Jets to have a moderate volume plus efficiency passing game. I think they're going to have to be a top 5 rushing team and hope to get some explosives out of the passing game and play good defense and good special teams to try to win games. Now, furthermore, offensive limitation number 2 is the pressure management with Fields. Now, he's going to give you some good runs. He's not terribly inaccurate, 64-ish completion percentage his last 2 years. It's not bad. Hovering around 7 yards per attempt. Okay. That's like right around the threshold for not being bad. Turnover, touchdown, interception ratio last 17 games or so is like 2-1. All right. There's some stuff from a passing profile. It's not terrible with Fields, but the taking of the sacks is a tough one to overcome. It's just such a negative play, and it puts your offense in such a hole. Now, obviously, he hasn't had a lot of great offensive lines, but the time to throw and the taking of the sacks, if you look at his time in Chicago and the games he started, he was sacked on 13% of his dropbacks, and all of the backups who played other than him, there was like 4 of them, they had a combined 5%. So he was 2.5 more times likely to be sacked than his less athletic counterparts. Now, the Bears didn't score any more points and win any more games and winning more games with those dudes because it's like Trevor Siemian. It was a bunch of bums, but those guys still proved that behind those same offensive lines and with those same coaches, you could not get sacked 13% of your dropbacks. So if the Jets can improve one skill with Fields, it has to be that. It's a non-starter. They're going to be awful if he can't improve that. So that's the one thing. If he can improve that, and now we're just not taking sacks, and even everything else is the same. 2-to-1 touchdown interceptions, 64% completion, 7 yards per attempt, some solid deep ball accuracy, but not really throwing the ball over the middle of the field, RPOs, all that. The Jets can survive. The Jets can be a fun watch this year if he can fix that. That's the one thing we got to fix with Fields. How do you do it? I don't know. That's how they pay Tanner Anderson all the money. Lack of middle of the field targets, just not something the Fields has done a lot. Lack of a true wide receiver 2 won't beat that to death. I would say lack of depth at offensive tackle and weapons. You have, again, Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, Breece Hall as your top 3 weapons is probably not the worst. And then Okafor and Myers are okay, but I'd say backup guard and left tackle, and then wide receiver depth and tight end depth, and then an inexperienced staff, which isn't, hey, I mean, well, Nate Hackett and Downing and Carter had plenty of experience, so who knows? Maybe some fresh faces is a good thing. Here's just some random thoughts on offense. Tippmann, I think, and I have no evidence for this. This is just a hunch. It's just a hunch. I think that the Jets see Joe Tippmann as a guard. I think this new staff, if they could have their druthers, I think they want him to be a guard, but they inherited 2 awesome guards. So I think that next year you're going to see the Jets keep one of AVT or Simpson, and then Tippmann will be the other guard. And then maybe they bring back Myers and draft like a center in the 4th round. And I think Tippmann will be at guard. Just a random hunch. Tyler Johnson could be a starter. Signed him. We're like, who's this guy? I think he could be wide receiver 3. Andrew Beck, I think, could be tight end 2. Signed him. Who's that guy? He might be your tight end 2. Stone Smart might be real. He's making some plays at camp. And I think that Brandon Smith should make the team over Allen Lazard, because why not? Now, defensive principles, we're going to see a change of. Now, again, Glenn versus Wilks. Well, they agree on a lot. They agree they're going to blitz more than Saleh, so check. They agree they're going to have more 5-man fronts, where it's almost like a 5-2 look instead of a 4-2. They more 3 linebackers, so the 3rd linebacker will play more. Glenn, a lot more heavy man, press man. Wilks, more zone. That's where they differ the biggest. They both like a true roster, a true nose tackle. Glenn has been more willing to have corners travel. And I think there might be a role for an edge linebacker, that Sam Rush linebacker hybrid on this team. I think Jamin Davis might be that guy. Kiko might be that guy. But there's a role for that. There wasn't really a role for that with Saleh. And I don't think there's a role for the inside-out defensive lineman. I don't think Aaron Glenn likes 270-pound dudes lined up over guards. He's just a little bit more prototypical. You're a tackle, you're an edge. But when it comes to edge linebacker, that's where he kind of dabbles in the tweenerism. Different than Saleh in that way. All right, so naming the defensive position groups. Defensive tackles, top heavy. Kind of a consistent theme with this roster, top heavy. Quinnen Williams, Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson. Yeah, man, those are some dudes who can freaking play. A lot of teams in the league, even good teams, don't have 3, pending Jermaine's health, don't have 3 defensive linemen who are as good as those dudes. Those guys can play. Quinnen, like, to me, people who say, like, Quinnen, and he had a down year last year against the run, but in general, like, his body of work the last 3 years since he's popped and been Quinnen, people who say, like, he's overpaid or he doesn't deserve the money or he disappears, I don't think understand what a defensive tackle is. Like, you look around the league, it's like, okay, take away Aaron Donald, who's gone, and then like Chris Jones and Dexter Lawrence. Okay, after that, who is better than Quinnen? He's at minimum a top 8 player at his position. He gave you 70 pressures last year. He has to be better against the run this year, for sure. That was probably the worst run defending season of his career since his rookie year. Will McDonald has 15 sack potential if he can get the run defense up good enough. to justify it. But then once you get past that, you go right from Jermaine to Byron Cowart, who is like a Solomon Thomas level player. So the Jets defensive line, when it was really good in 22 and 23, were missing the Quentin Jefferson, the Bryce Huff, the Al Woods. We're missing that tier of like really plus role players because it goes from Jermaine right to Solly Thomas Island, right? And Michael Clemens and Tyler Barron is going to be here. And you got some interesting names. Like, I have no idea how this is going to shake out. Eric Watts could be a good edge setting, run defending end. Derek Notty's been a good run defender in the past, but he was awful last year, and he's not even getting work with the ones. Jay Tefele was called Big J by Steve Wilkes, but I don't. Peyton Page, I think he can make the team. I think Peyton Page can make the team. He could be the primary run stuffing rotational defensive tackle. UDFA. Top heavy defensive line. Linebacker, best in the business in terms of a duo. Quincy Williams, Damian Sherwood, definitely in the conversation for best linebacker duo in the NFL. And I think with this defense being more aggressive and blitzing more, like those two guys are very efficient blitzers. That's something that they could leverage more. Quincy, again, like Quinnen, like Sauce, like Michael Carter, you have a lot of players on this defense who are 1 year removed from being really good. And they're not old. It's not like Quincy. It's not like, Sauce is washed. Michael Carter had a back injury, but if we get the version of those guys we saw in a season where the coach wasn't fired in the middle of the year and all of that, Quincy was an all-pro. Quinnen was an all-pro. Michael Carter was a top 5 slot corner in the NFL. Not that long ago, and they're not old. Will McDonald had 10 sacks in NFL. It's not a bunch of bums on the defense. It's not. They're missing some role players. Will McDonald has to get better against the run. Jermaine Health. There's some question marks, but it's not like there's no talent on the defense. Far from it. Then you got Kiko, the rookie, Jamin Davis, who could be that hybrid player. So it drops off after that. You don't have established depth, what team has like a bunch of depth at linebacker? I mean, really, like, okay, swing tackle, you want one of those. Backup quarterback, you want one of those. But at backup linebacker, I mean, I don't know. It just kind of is what it is. I can't really lose too much sleep over that. The linebacker depth, to be honest, is what it is. But the top two are as good as any two in the NFL. Cornerback. I think this is the deepest room on the team, and this is the one room on the team I'm looking at where I think they might cut a player I'll be upset about. I can't, other rooms, like if they end up like, oh, Stone Smart couldn't make it, I'll be like, oh, that was fun try. But if they cut Quantez Stiggers or Jared Bernard Converse, I'm going to be a little bummed, and I would wager one of those guys gets rostered. And yeah, because they go pretty deep. I mean, if you want to count Isaiah Oliver as a corner and put him into this, he's been a starter in Steve Wilkes' defense in a year where they had a good defense. They went to the Super Bowl. Sauce is as good as any corner in the NFL at preventing wide receivers from getting the ball. That's pretty important. He does it as well as anyone in the NFL since he's been in the NFL. Stevens, we know he's got to get better at playing the ball. Although I have been seeing in camp, I've been seeing a lot, like the first 2-3 days, it was like Stevens getting burnt, Stevens getting cooked. Since then, I've seen a lot more Stevens getting pass breakup. Stevens right there on making the play. So, yeah, and I would, like, guys, they're not starting a rookie over Brandon Stevens the first week of the season. They gave Stevens $25 million. They're not starting a 21-year-old over him. They're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and if he starts sucking, then we'll talk from there. But no shot that AZ Thomas is starting week 1. Michael Carter, again, like Sauce and Michael Carter could be top 5 guys at their spot this year. And that's not like, oh, we're overrating the team again. It's not a projection. Like Membu Fashanu, that's a projection. Arian Smith, that's a projection. Sauce and Michael Carter, just be the players you were in 2023. And you both be top 5 of your position. And then you got Thomas, Stiggers, JBC, all young guys, young, hungry guys. Isaiah Oliver, a versatile piece. I have him in the safety room on this slide deck, but offensive line is probably the most talented unit in terms of starters, but I think corner is the deepest and most intriguing. That's going to be interesting to follow who makes the team. Safety, I think there's a high ceiling and low floor. because if Malachi Moore can win the starting job and Andre Cisco can bounce back, you probably have like an average starting safety tandem, and it costs you an $8 million deal and a fourth round pick. That's pretty good business. But I think there's some variance there where Cisco is just pretty hot and cold. And if Moore isn't ready to start, then you have Tony Adams, who was just bad. And then behind that, Oliver, is he a nickel? Is he a safety? And then just the roster bubble kind of players. So a lot of volatility in the safety room. But if I were to bet on who's leading the team in picks, I think it could be Andre Cisco. And Tony Adams is going to hang around. Tony Adams, you're going to see him on the field a lot this year, for better or worse. Prepare yourselves accordingly. So defensive strengths and weaknesses, man coverage, man up, press man coverage. Yeah, they got the dudes to do it. Sauce and Michael Carter. Again, if those are two of your three starting corners and they're both top 5 at their spot, Brandon Stephens, even if he's below average, you still are a good man coverage team. Excellent linebacker duo. I've said it could be the best in the NFL. And they have 2 what I will call single team destroyers. If it is a passing down and you are blocking Quinnen Williams or Will McDonald with one human, that one human is going to have a tough time. Now you need Jermaine back. You need another guy to step up. You need Leonard Taylor. Did I forget Leonard Taylor? I think I forgot to list Leonard Taylor on the roster. He'll be on the team. That was my bad. But you need some other guys to step up for sure. But they have 2 single team destroyers. Cornerback depth, I mentioned, super deep, super intriguing, versatile, young guys. And then one area of this team, like the non-defensive line pass rush, if they're going to get like Michael Carter has been a very effective blitzer. Brandon Stephens, in limited sample size, has been a very effective blitzer. Quincy Williams, Damian Sherwood. So they have some good blitzers in their back 7. Now that's not the bread and butter of how you get after the passer, but it could add 4 or 5 sacks onto your season that may not have been there otherwise. I think it's worth mentioning. And unlike the offense, they have plenty of experience on the defensive staff. Defensive-minded head coach who's been a DC, Steve Wilkes been a DC. They have guys in their jobs who have done their jobs before. Where the offense is like, what did you used to do? And it's like, I worked at Home Depot. And it's like, great, you can coach the tight ends. But on offense, they're like, on defense, they were just like, hey, you want to be the defensive coordinator like you were before? And he's like, yeah, sure, cool. So a little more experience. Defensive limitations, run defense until proven otherwise. I think the pass defense will be better because, again, especially with Malachi Moore's injury, like if Tony Adams is going to be out there with Cisco, I think you have a below average run defending safety tandem. Will McDonald was one of the worst run defending edge players in the NFL last year, even though against the pass he was amazing. Hopefully he can improve. He's bigger. He's 15 pounds heavier. And then that defensive tackle spot next to Quinnen, which was a big reason of why they were bad against the run last year. They didn't really make a significant talent upgrade. So if the run defense is going to be better, it's going to probably have to be from a schematic discipline perspective. From a personnel perspective, I can't really see a reason why the run defense would be much better. So it's going to have to come from coaching. Front 7 depth, lack of depth at linebacker and defensive line is not as good as corner. They have a couple one-dimensional players, like Will McDonald, right? Like Eric Watts, like Derek Nottie, like Andre Cisco, right? And then tackling. Again, the tackling and run defense, just from a roster construction standpoint, there's evidence that it would be a weakness. So you're just hoping that teamwork, discipline, scheme, accountability, that stuff improves run defense and tackling, which it actually can. Like the Jets, they just had dudes freelancing last year. Like Javon Kinlaw and Hassan Reddick were just doing whatever they wanted. And they were getting gashed up the run because those guys just were doing whatever they wanted. You got to be in your assignment. So hopefully Coach Glenn will get that fixed. Random thoughts on defense. Like I said, hope they keep an extra corner because I think that room is deep. It's intriguing. I think Jamin Davis could be that hybrid linebacker edge role. They tried it with James Houston in Detroit. Now he had 1 year where he really popped in that role. And then I think Malachi Moore should start. If it's close, give it to Malachi Moore. He's got plenty of football experience, even though he's a rookie. Special teams, biggest bump, man. I think this could be truly. You go from Greg Z to Nick Folk. What other addition did the Jets make that you think is worth 2 wins? Because I think that's worth 2 wins. It's a big bump. Austin McNamara, I'd like them to bring in competition at punter. Why not? Like any random punter who's punted in the NFL, just have competition there. Why not? Folk seems to be running away with the job over the thicker kicker. Kenny and Nwangwu, like, look, if they roster in Nwangwu, I'm bullish on this special teams unit. If they roster in Nwangwu and Boyd, I think the special teams can have a bounce back. And Nwangwu is 4th in NFL history, tied with Joe McKnight, RIP, 4th in NFL history in average return yardage for a kick returner. Nwangwu is a great kick returner, and that's all he can do. So do you want to roster that? I might, man. Who are we cutting? Just not JBC. But you can cut Jay Tefele and keep Nwangwu. It'll be fine. We'll be fine. But Nick Folk and Nwangwu, those could be like, you could have a top 5 kicker and a top 5 kick returner. Now your punter and your punt returner, I don't know, man. Like Gibson, that's the best we could do. I don't know. But those two areas, yeah, it could be a big bump. I mean, the kicker alone, big bump. So, summary, reasons for hope for the New York Jets. Offensive line, rush offense, the defense bouncing back. Coaching just has to be better. It can't be worse. It has to be better. And the special teams, again, the kicker, that's worth a game or two. Even if Nick Folk regresses and he's average, it's still a game or two better than what we had last year. If he's great, it could be 3 games better than we had last year. Reasons for doom. The passing offense, it is 2025. Your quarterback is Justin Fields. Your wide receiver 2 is Josh Reynolds. That is what it is. I mean, you guys are smart people. I don't need to lie to you about what that is. I can't do it. Only so much Kool-Aid we can drink. Now the coaching I have in both areas, because I'm very confident the coaching will be better than last year's Jets. Am I confident their coaching will be better than their opponent in a majority of the games they play? I have no idea. So the coaching is a question mark. My record prediction is this team goes 7-10. And I think that it ties for second in the AFC East, because I don't think the Patriots or Dolphins are going to be very good this year. And I think that's the minimum number of wins where you're kind of feeling okay. Like, you got younger, you got cheaper, you won 2 more games in the previous year. Okay. You're on an upward trajectory. Would be concluding my deep dive on the 2025 New York Jets. If you got any value out of that, you want to hit the thumbs up button, that'd be cool. 72 minutes. Jeez. What's up in the comments? Does Membu suck, or is McDonald a beast? Has Membu been getting the worst of that matchup? That would make sense. As a rookie, I mean, that would make sense. Will McDonald is 5 years older than Armand Membu. Jet X Factor has been pretty brutal towards Fields. Hughes today, after the green and white scrimmage, was really negative. I'm trying not to be Sky is Falling fan, but I don't want to watch Zach Wilson 2.0. Fields is better than Zach Wilson. Now, that's not saying much, but Fields, even just as a passer, he's better than Zach Wilson. And obviously, he's adding a rushing element that Zach Wilson could never add. So he'll be better than Zach Wilson. Now, will he be a top 20 quarterback? I don't know. I don't know. But again, what were the Jets' options? Like, realistically, what were the Jets' options? At least from a veteran perspective. Jacob says, do you think there is anything to the Tyrod should be QB1 chatter? If Tyrod Taylor and Justin Fields were both signed to 1 year, $5 million deals, and that was it, that was all we were going to do, and it's just in open competition, and if one of them could win just one more game, if one of them could win 8 games and the other one could win 7, or one could win 7 and the other one could win 6, yeah, Tyrod is probably better than Fields, particularly as a passer. And Tyrod can play. Let me look up Tyrod's stats, dude. I'm telling you, Tyrod in those awful Giants teams was kind of nice. He just gets hurt every 5 seconds. Let's see. So Tyrod Taylor, the last 3 years, he's played in 5, 8, 10 games. Okay, decent sample size. Now, there's a good amount of garbage time in here, so take this with a grain of salt, but still, we're working with 68.5% completions, which is great. 9 touchdowns to 4 picks, so more than 2 to 1. And right around 7 yards per attempt. QBR over 50. Yeah, I mean, those are better numbers than what we had at quarterback last year, from an efficiency standpoint. But the thing is, what would be the point of signing Fields if you're not going to give him a shot to see if he can improve? The reason you sign Fields is because he could potentially improve, and he improved, and now he's like the 17th best quarterback in the NFL. Let's say hypothetically. Okay, that's freaking awesome, because now you have the 17th best quarterback on the NFL on a massive discount of $20 million a year, because that's what that is. $20 million a year for an average starting quarterback is a massive discount for the next 2 years. Then you figure it out after that. That'd be awesome. And if Fields bottoms out, then I guess you're getting a high draft pick, is the way I see it. So Tyrod being the steady in the middle does nothing for this team. And Tyrod is going to get hurt after 4 games, and you'd have to play Fields anyway. That's the way I see it. But if people are saying they think Tyrod is better than Fields, like slightly, that's okay, maybe. But also, and the Pittsburgh Steelers did this exact experiment last year. They went to Russell Wilson, and they got a little shot in the arm the first week. The passing game opened up. But at the end of the day, when you looked at points scored in games won, they were no better off than they were with Fields. Yeah, you're definitely right, Rico. Like, A.J. Thomas just had to be talent that they couldn't pass it up. Stop saying that BS. He's not, dude. It's just my opinion, man. Like, Tyrod Taylor in shorts probably is running the offense more smoothly and the passing offense more smoothly than Justin Fields. Like, yeah, you really think that's unreasonable that could be happening? I think you're being a little bit partial towards Fields. Like, to me, it's just, I'm a Jets fan. I'm not a Fields fan. I'm not a Tyrod Taylor fan. I don't care. Like, Aaron Rodgers, I wanted him on the Jets. When what I watched last year happened, I didn't pretend it wasn't happening. So I'm just going to call it like I see it, whether I'm wrong or not. With no, nothing else is a part of it. Like, Tyrod can play. Let's not be disrespectful to Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor has been a starting quarterback before in the NFL. He's been a starting quarterback for a team that broke up a long playoff drought. He's got 60 starts in this league, and he's thrown 70 touchdowns to 30 picks. Tyrod can play. Tyrod's a pro. Let's not act like Tyrod is a bum. Give me an average offense, and I'll be happy. Yeah, give me 22.5 points a game. I'll be thrilled. Zach Kuntz. Yeah, 7th round pick. It's kind of hard to scheme a run game when your quarterback refuses to take a snap under center. I completely agree. What's up, Jake? Appreciate the super chat, brother. Our O-line blocks physicality for this man blocking scheme. I would actually think that's not an unfair point. Actually, that is not. It's a little bit more of a finesse unit. I would agree with that, actually, but I think that it's very talented. I'm worried Quinn will be out of shape if he doesn't practice. I'm worried about his Achilles if he pushes through a calf injury, though. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Fields could flourish now the best season of his career. I'd say that's likely. Now, is the best season of his career good enough to be X, Y, or Z? I don't know, but I mean, I think he'll definitely be better than he was in Chicago because offensive line. Pittsburgh's offensive line was like what, mid, but Chicago's it was bad. So he should be at least as good as he was at the end of his last Chicago year to Pittsburgh last year. If he looks like rookie Fields, then that probably means that we're not doing a good job putting him in a position to succeed. Jets D is stacked. There's good players. There's a lot of good players. Quinnen, JJ, McDonald, Quincy, Sherwood, Sauce, Michael Carter. Those are some good players. I bet Stigers can play free safety. Yeah. JVC Stigers is one of them going to safety. I thought that could have been a possibility when they were drafted. Hasn't seemed to happen. This was the best analysis of a Jet roster I've ever heard. Well, thank you, Daniel. And thank you, Next Gen Stats, for the numbers. Full AFC striker predictions. So I think the Bills will be good. I don't know. What do the Bills win? Like 12 games, probably 12-5 or something. And I hate it. The Bills had such a good draft, and by that I mean they just drafted my favorite players, so maybe they'll all suck. But the Bills drafted a lot of players that I wanted the Jets to get, including a multiple defensive linemen. But so yeah, they'll probably win unless Josh Allen gets hurt or something crazy. But then I really think you could see Jets, Dolphins, and Pats all be right around 7 wins and kind of be, in that second place area. I don't think there's reason to think the Dolphins or Patriots are going to be leagues better than the Jets this year. Now, obviously, the Dolphins, if Tua is healthy, they have the best quarterback of the three, and the most established offensive staff. So you'd probably give the Dolphins that nod, and they've been to the playoffs with this quarterback and this staff. But if Tua has to miss that standard 4 to 5 games, that kind of changes the equation, right? Then we could have won 8 games last year with a good kicker. Yes, with a good kicker. Yes, with an average kicker, maybe 1 or 2 more with a good kicker, a top 8 or so kicker. Yeah, you're probably talking 3 more wins, man. For sure. Now, what's interesting about that is would a good kicker have been just enough for them to keep the coaching staff? What if they were 8 and 9? They're like, Salah, Hackett, we'll give you one more shot, right? Because if they make those kicks in Denver, I don't even count because Denver, Greg Z went 3 for 4 and missed a 52-yarder in the rain. That happens. But Minnesota, those were shanks from 39 yards, multiple, right? So if they win in Minnesota and then they win in Buffalo, because those are the 2 games where the kicker was the most egregious, back to back, and then the season was over pretty much after that. But if you win those 2 games, then you end up going whatever 8 and 9. You might be like, okay, bring back these coaches, and then you essentially waste another year, really, because no matter what you did at quarterback, forget Rodgers, whatever, Salah and Hackett and company, another year of them would have been a waste. So, Zachary, thanks, man. Did you want to add a comment that I could put up there, brother? Because I don't see one. It's like a sticker. But if you just type in an extra comment, I'll find it and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Unless you just wanted to do a donation, which is appreciated. 4,100 yards for Fields, 29 touchdowns. So I'm going to smash the over on Fields. I think his over-under was 2,600 passing yards. I'd take the over. If you play 17 games, he's to throw for more than that. I don't know what, 190-ish yards a game. Maybe I can't do math. Maybe that's, what does that come out to? 190 times 17, 3,200. Yeah. So I think Fields will probably be flirting with 3 in the low 3,000s, 3,100, 3,200, given that he maybe misses 1 game or whatever. I think they're going to run the ball a lot, but they're not going to run the wishbone because again, to see if Fields can improve, you have to give him a shot to play quarterback and live with some of the mistakes that are going to come with that. Oh, appreciate that, man. Zachary. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 200 passing yards per game for Fields would be awesome because what is that? That'd be 3,400 yards in the season. I mean, I think I would sign for that right now because that means he's getting you probably going to get you 4,000 scrimmage yards, right? Because I would say 600 or so rushing yards probably. Mm, I don't think you've watched him play Fields. I mean, dude, I haven't watched her. Are you like a Bears? You've probably watched more Fields than I have. 100%. I will concede that to you. But he's your guy, man. Come on, he's your guy. Just say it. Just say, hey, he's my guy. He's my guy. I got my guys. Um, I mean, geez, Elijah Moore, that was my guy. I thought Elijah Moore was gonna be so good, and I held out hope. And even still, when he went to the Browns, I was like, he still might be good. And when he's on the Bills, no, it's Khalil Shakir is gonna get hurt, and then Elijah Moore is gonna have his breakout year. I still secretly think that, but I know that that's just because he's, I just thought he was gonna be really good. Um, But regardless, the Fields to Tyrod comparison, it doesn't matter because again, there's no point in this team playing Tyrod Taylor. There's no point in it. That gets them nothing. They need to find out if Fields can improve and be an average starting quarterback. And playing Tyrod Taylor does not answer that question. That's really all. People who are saying play Tyrod are just want to say something negative. Like, I'm sorry, that's all you're doing because you're playing dumb. We know what this year is about. And saying play Tyrod like that's going to accomplish anything for this team is just silly. I bet my house on Fields taking us to the Super Bowl over Tyrod. What? I mean, we're not going to the Super Bowl with either of them this year. So I don't know. Sure, we go to Super Bowl with Brady Cook too. Come on, man. Come on, Nikki. Rein it in. The Jets are not winning the Super Bowl this year, man. Zaire Barnes, definitely. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Will McDonald, although he ended up being good, thank God. Should we trade for number 2 receiver? Only way I would want the Jets to trade for number 2 receiver is if it's a player who is like younger and under contract for a couple more years. I know who is the kid in who was the kid in Green Bay who could have been traded? Was it not Wicks? Was it Daubs? But the problem is I think he was like had a couple of things where he was suspended by a game for conduct detrimental, and like you don't want to acquire a head case. So no, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to roll with what they have in their receiver room. Now, if they overachieve and it's like, whoa, the Jets are, 7-4 at the deadline, and now they want to go ahead and maybe part with a day 3 pick to get a veteran receiver, that's a different conversation. But I think this is the wide receiver room they're going to open the season with. Yeah, Romeo Doubs. Can Lazard have a pulse? Probably not. Frank says, hopefully this offensive coordinator coach is good. Yeah, Tanner Engstrand is like the wild card. Because to me, to just be straight up, to be honest, and again, it is just 100% my opinion. I don't have evidence for this. A lot of the opinions in this video were backed up with evidence. This one is just a straight up vibe. I like Coach Glenn. I think he passes the smell test to me as a leader. But that's not all it takes. They got to solve the most crucial positions, and his staff has to do their job. So Tanner Engstrand is the biggest wild card on this team, even more than Fields, because Engstrand we have no information about. None. So wouldn't it be nice if he was just a good coach? Where will the defense be ranked? I don't know, maybe like between 10th and 14th, like an above average defense. I would take that. A Mike Tomlin. I mean, look, I know Steelers fans are itching to get rid of Mike Tomlin. Dude, sign me up for Mike Tomlin. If Aaron Glenn could be a Mike Tomlin, sign me up. And then we're complaining because we make the playoffs, but we don't win playoff games. Let's take that step first. I'm happy to take that step. I'm happy to lose a playoff game and say, damn, I wish we could have won it. It's fine by me. And to be fair, like with Pittsburgh, it's been their quarterback and his offensive hires, like their offensive coordinator spot has been bad for a while. Engstrand gives you Mike LaFleur vibes. Yeah, I understand that. Yep. But I mean, Mike LaFleur was still better than the guys we hired after him. The defense has the personnel to be top 10. Yeah, I think there's definitely some variables going their way where they could be top 10. I think an outlier recovery season from Jermaine is the first one there. Jermaine Johnson being a top 20 end versus being like you're just happy to see him out there and kind of working himself back into shape and all that. Those are two very different things for your defense. And then if they can fix Brandon Stevens, whatever situation, not playing the ball. But leave it there. Appreciate you guys hanging out. If you want to hit the thumbs up on your way out, that'd be cool. And we will talk Jet soon.